15. And this is a team like I'm excited for. And that's the Oregon State Beavers. Coming off a phenomenal year for the Beavers last year. I mean, and again, if you would have asked me at the end, how did Oregon State do? I bet you if you asked the casual college football fan, how did Oregon State do last year? They'd be like, they're mediocre. They play in the Pac-12. Pac-12 is really not that great. Oregon State's coming off of a 10-3 year. They finished the year in the top 25. All three of their losses last season were to teams ranked in the top 25 throughout the season. They pull off an amazing win in Corvallis to end the year in the Civil War against the Oregon Ducks, which was we kind of called that game. Was that the one we got accused of being closet Oregon State fans?
Yes, that was the game we got accused of being closet Oregon State fans.
Well, guys, you don't have to accuse me of being a closet Oregon State fan this year. I am fully on the bandwagon. I think this Oregon State team is going to be really, really good this year. I think that there's a lot of things that are very intriguing to me, but I'll turn it over to you, Fresh. Talk to me a little bit about how you're looking at Oregon State going into 23.
Well, I think the biggest landscape is that a 10-win season in Corvallis is very rare. And having to come off it and build off it with all the expectations, momentum they have coming forward this year I think it's a breath of fresh air there in the program. They have some stability. I think the last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure the Twitterverse will, but I think the last time they had this expectation was coming off of the year they went to the Fiesta Bowl with Chad Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada, and their current head coach was as quarterback Jonathan Smith when they won the Fiesta Bowl and beat Notre Dame. Everyone kind of thought that program was going to finally get going and really become a consistent winner. And that was just a one-hit wonder, 1 year wonder, and they kind of went back to that middle of the road program. Can they actually take that next step and become that consistent winner? That's what the season I really want to see from them. You got Damian Martinez, the running back, coming back. He wasn't actually the full-time starter at the beginning of the year last year, had to dominate down the stretch. Now he's going to get a full year as the lead back and the running back for that program. What can he do? I have a high expectations for him. And also, then you look at the quarterback position. DJ Uiagalelei, coming from Clemson, now he's at Oregon State. He's already made it publicly well aware that he was restricted at Clemson. The offense was not very imaginative, innovative, didn't use his skills. It was very, basic. And he's really looking forward to this offense here at Oregon State and what he's going to be able to do. That's great. You can say whatever you want. That's kind of like talking bad about an ex. It's like, oh, I'm so fantastic. They really sucked. But now the pressure's on you because you actually basically called out that program. Can you actually win? Are you actually better than what you were at Clemson? Can you actually throw the football? Can you be mobile? You showed flashes at Clemson, but you were very inconsistent. What can you actually do here in Corvallis? Those are the two real big kickers because now the pressure's on. People are coming for him. You have a quarterback there. You have a name. And you have a stud running back. How can this team build off of that and go forward? Last year's team was really built off the defense. They were second in the Pac-12 in points allowed with 21.4 a game, second in the Pac-12 allowing 342 yards a game. They were third in pass yards allowed, and they were second in rush yards allowed. So the defense carried this football team. They played fantastic. They got off the field. They limited those vaunted offenses of the Pac-12 from really torching them. And that helps a running game, a great defense. You can build off that. You play small ball in essence, and that's how you win. That's what they're going to have to do this year. You don't want to put DJU in situations where he has to win the football game by himself or has to throw to win. You want him to manage the football game, be smart, maximize situations, but not have to put it all on his shoulders. The receiver depth is going to be a lot of bunch of mixing and matching. They don't have a 5-star receiver. They don't have the receivers like they do at Washington. They don't have the blazing speed or receivers they have at USC. They're going to have to find guys to be possession receivers, work with the running game, and manage the offense to be successful. Now, last year, they did have the fourth best rushing attack in the Pac-12. They averaged 196 yards a game, but they had the second worst passing attack. They only threw for 199.5 yards. They've got to be able to find more of a balance there because you're going to have to throw. You start playing the Washingtons, you start playing Oregon again up in Eugene, USC's on the schedule again. The offenses in the league are so amazing. If you want to take that next step, you're going to have to find a way to throw for about 250 a game and run for about 190. You're going to have to find a way to score for about 35 to 40 points a game because everybody else is. The defense, 21 points is fantastic. Can you keep that going forward? Not totally sure. You're going to have to score more this year to be able to be a little more consistent and actually compete for that Pac-12 title. I think that's where the real key lies, taking that next step from those perspectives. When the offense only scored 32 points a game, that's not bad for most leagues, but that's fifth or sixth in the Pac 12. That just shows you how good the rest of the league is. They're going to have to elevate there. I think if DJU can back up his talk, they have the opportunity there. They've learned what they did good. You have a full offseason to see we ran the ball well. We can identify the passing game. That's going to help, and it will also help the defense, especially if you can score more points and create a little more opportunity for the pass rush. It allows the defense to play a little looser in situations and not feel like they're going to get beat in bad times. So that's going to be a help. When it comes down to it, the schedule is going to be much tougher than it was last year, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody. You start out at San Jose State to open the year, and then you host San Diego State in week 3. You got 2 pretty good teams in the Mountain West that are going to compete with you and give you a nice little test to start the year. You avoid USC unless you play them in the championship game. If you do, you're going to have to be ready defensively and offensively. You host Utah and you host UCLA. That's 2 perennial good solid offenses from the past couple of years. Utah's been an amazing defensive team. Both of them coming to your house is a big advantage. You end the year with Washington and a trip to Eugene. The last 2 games of the year are really going to test it. If they're in it, you got 2 big games there. If you're in the mediocre spot, it could be for maybe sneaking back into the title game, or it could even keep you to be bowl eligible. And having those 2 teams there at the very end, it's not going to look good. So you make sure you get your wins early, you stack them early, you stack them often, because that's a tough way to end the season. Outside of Oregon, though, the road trips aren't very tough. You go to what? Washington State, Cal, Arizona, Colorado. If you can win on the road and manage your home schedule, you're in great shape. That's what this team's going to have to take care of. You have to running games of defense, win on the road. You're already in a great spot there. If you can take them to those locations, take care of business, you're in a great spot. I think the floor for this team is 7-5. If they start, if DJ Ungole really struggles, the offense gets caught up, the defense maybe has some leaks that they didn't have last year. It puts them in a tight spot. But I think the ceiling, though, could be 10-2, and they could beat 2 of the big 4 on their schedule: Oregon, Utah, UCLA, or Washington. If they can win 2 of those 4, they're a 10-2 team and potentially playing for a Pac-12 title. It's going to be really interesting to see how Jonathan Smith manages expectations of that team, because right now everyone's telling them they're fantastic. And obviously, we're putting them 15 in our preseason poll. If they can manage expectations, play solid defense like they did last year, and improve on offense, they're in great shape to make a lot of noise and potentially even compete for a New Year's Six bowl.
So, Fresh, I'm excited for Oregon State a lot. I've been looking quite a bit into them, and you covered a lot of the points I have in my notes here, and I'm going through it. But you point out a few really interesting things on how special this is going into the 23 season for the Beavers. Oregon State started playing 10 football games in 1957. Since 1957, they have had a grand total of 3 seasons of more than 10 wins. From 2015 all the way to 2018, they had a total of 9 wins in those seasons. So this is a fan base that went through the really, really rough time. This is a fan base that you didn't see a lot of. You could go to school there and get a graduate degree and still not see a team that was a 500 ball club. So what Jonathan Smith has done at Oregon State should be commended. The other great thing is you talked about their schedule at home versus on the road. So I noticed that too. And I noticed that very early on, Friday night, they get Utah in Corvallis at the end of September. UCLA, middle of the month of October, they're coming to Corvallis. Washington, late November, coming to Corvallis. And then you got to go to Eugene, like you say. In the last 2 years, Jonathan Smith has Oregon State at 12-1 at home. That's impressive. They have really, and we talked about it last year when we were going into the Civil War game, is about building the dam. I know we're making the beaver metaphors here, but building the dam around that, protecting home field and being able to have this great defense. They had an amazing defense last year, and people don't give them enough credit. They're second best defense in the Pac-12, as you talked about. They have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. They have these 2 really, really great running backs. And I don't think that there's going to be as much pressure on DJU. I know he's ran his mouth a little bit, but to start the season, the eyes aren't going to be on him. The eyes are going to be on what does USC do after their two clunkers of a loss to end the season. Is Utah a paper champion in the Pac-12 because they lose to Florida in the swamp and then they get boat raced by Penn State in the Rose Bowl? Oregon looked good at times, but still, all of us will remember that complete destruction in Atlanta to start the season to Georgia. You look at, there's all these other Pac 12 stories, media deal, Coach Prime in the Pac 12, realignment, all of those things are going to be talked about going into the season, which I think will take a lot of that pressure off of DJU. And you take a look at the start of the season. At San Jose State, at UC Davis, and San Diego State comes in, and then Washington State. You have 4 games where the talent level isn't going to be that high. And you're going to have some time to really get your feet under you and put up some stats and get comfortable in that system. They're going to start the season 4-0. And then the real season starts, like I said, that Friday night game versus the Utes. I like this team a lot, man. I'm with you. I got them. I wanted to say their floor is 8 games as well. I have a feeling I'm going to stretch this a little bit more. I'm going to say their floor is 9 wins. And if everything starts to come together, if they can start to shift the offense into become more potent on the offensive side of the ball, I should say. They were a ball control offense. Take a look at that USC game. They lost to USC by 3 points last season. Their game against Washington was very, very close. The only game they looked terrible in was the game at Utah, and everybody looks terrible at Utah. So I really like this Oregon State team. I'm going to say that their ceiling is 11-1. I think
Wow.
that it's the ceiling is and again, everything's got to come together. It would be very, very tough for me to say you're going to for sure you're going to go 2-1 against Oregon, Washington, and Utah. That's why I have the floor at 9, because I think that they'll get past UCLA, and I don't really see another team that I feel comfortable saying that they're going to, they'll be a favorite in every one of their other games. So are you going to go 0-3, 2-1, 1-2 against, or 3-0 against those 3 other teams? And that's going to make or break that this year for Oregon State. You're right. They could very well end up in Las Vegas playing for the Pac-12 title game. I like this Oregon State team a lot. I'm going to be fascinated to watch them. I can't wait to preview some of these games because I think that it's going to give us a lot to watch for and a lot of really fun football for Pac-12 after dark.
So after bowl season, if they get 11 wins or more, if you're the AD or the mayor of Corvallis, do you just have a parade for the football team?
I would. And here's the interesting thing. The other 2 times that they've won 10 games, it was 2000 and 2006. In 2006, they wound up in 2000 they wound up winning 11 games, and then the following season they went 5-6. But then they rebounded in 2002. You take a look at in 2006, they went 10-4, and then they ran off 9-win season, 9-win season, 8-win season. So, like I said, I feel comfortable around that 8-9 win mark. I feel pretty strong about that one. I don't know what their over under is right now from Vegas, but I really like this Oregon State team. I can't say enough good things about them. You hit a lot of the fun stuff though, so I'm not going to just
That's what
regurgitate
I,
everything you said.
that's what I try to do.
Yeah. All right.